And how many of you are planning careers in human services where you're going to work with our population? Okay, quite a lot. You're the group that's been dragooned. The rest, I seem like they're volunteers. Thank you. Welcome.
We have a number of volunteers, sir.
Welcome all of you. Well, one more question. I'm just curious. Who's read my book?
I can't wait to read it.
No one. Okay, well, I will say this, that you're obviously going to be leaders in your field. I just have a sixth sense about that.
Yeah.
So thank you. For survivors of severe TBI, alternative therapies are not merely a good idea. They're a necessity. Conventional medicine takes us as far as they can, but it often is only to the nursing home door, or if they come home, they're often heavily medicated, facing long empty hours, and generally driving their families nuts. By the way, before I forget, I have a sheet of additional resources in the back that have wonderful websites, but also even list doctors who are in this region who are practicing alternative therapies. And all of them have been vetted. I know all of them. BART wasn't literally treated by all of them. I've spoken to and corresponded with all of them. We're not cheerleaders for these specific therapies, although I think some of them are terrific. We're more advocates of a persistent search for new alternatives. I'm sure 100 years from now, when they write the history books and they read that we were treating traumatic brain injury with neurofeedback and hyperbaric oxygen, they're going to laugh and say, how quaint. Next thing you know, it's leeches and poultices. Okay? But right now, they're tops. 11 years and counting, BART still struggles with significant deficits to short-term memory, to field of vision, to fine motor control, and to impulse control. But if you met him, you would find him a lively, charming young man. He lives an hour away from us in the Albany area, has his own flat, has a part-time job, has made new friends, and moved on with his life. How different the outcome had we heeded the advice of well-meaning, busy bureaucrats. If there's one universal, there's practically nothing universal about TBI. But if there's one universal, it's that our loved ones who are injured need strong advocates in order to navigate mind-boggling difficulties. Even in the hospital, we experienced and were blessed with many acts of extraordinary kindness. There was Nurse Mary, an elderly nurse just fixing to retire, who every day we leave, we were there every day, she'd say to BART, well, you know, your mama's leaving. When your mama's not here, I'm your mama. Okay? And she meant it. And it was very healing. But soon after we returned home, soon after we came back to our community, we noticed something unexpected and good. First, a gym coach came up to us and said, you know, I'd like to work with BART on Fridays after school on basketball skills. And I practically hugged him to death. And he did. And then another fellow came up and said, you know, I'd like to try craniosacral therapy for BART. I'll give him a weekly session. And both of these gentlemen refused payment. And I mean, I argued long and hard. The gym coach was a young fellow with young kids. I said, well, just take the money and put it aside for your kids. But they wouldn't do it. They said, no, BART's had such a crushing blow, and we want to help, and it's our way or the highway. So they helped for years without payment. And time and again, we found that when the situation was most desperate and the need most urgent, people came forward and helped out. Good people, going about their business quietly, trying to lend a hand and basically help make the world a better place. And Dale and I coined the word, or the term, conspiracy of decency for this movement. There was a varsity football coach. It was BART's first year back, about 9-10 months after the accident. First game of the year against our nemesis, Wallkill High School, and they're about to have the coin toss. All of a sudden, this giant of a man, Tom Tegler, the varsity football coach, comes jogging off the field. He's not starting the game. And he climbs up into the bleachers, and he gives Bart a huge bear hug and chats with him for a while, and then he trots back out. And he demonstrated in full view of the entire school community, and in the town like New Paltz, of the whole town, because everybody comes to the games, right? He showed that he had his priorities straight. And I was deeply moved. In fact, I often thought of it as comparable to Pee Wee Reese hugging Jackie Robinson out in Cincinnati in front of his people, basically legislating for humanity, showing them how they're supposed to live. It's interesting, years later when I said to Coach Tegler, well, you know, that was special, he didn't remember it. And we shouldn't be surprised. People in the habit of doing kind deeds don't dwell on it.
Right.
Knock on any door, you'll find these folks. They are tangible evidence of the divine spark in all of us. This is not exactly breaking news, this conspiracy, but when I find myself getting lost and overwhelmed in a desperate fight, it is a comfort to remember. And without it, there were times when this journey would have been simply too bleak and unbearable. We live in an age of specialization. You'll all be trained as specialists. And we used to say in logistics that if all you've got is a hammer, and that's all you've been trained with, then before long, everything and everybody begins to look like a nail.
Yeah.
So I'm saying you're going to need all the tools. You're going to need the hammer and the screwdriver and the wrench and the ratchets. And you may even need some unconventional tools like lubricants. You get your W1040 or your navel jelly, right? You got a frozen joint. Be open-minded. I'm reminded of a joke that my parents used to tell, and I think we probably could use a little humor at this point. There's two old tailors, Sal and Vic. They're brothers, and they finally, they're retiring, they're taking a trip to Italy, and by good luck, somehow they're picked for, by lottery to be part of a group audience with the Pope. They're at the Vatican. And they're walking in, and don't you know, the Swiss guards say, look, it's over and rolled, and only one of you can come in. So Vic says, Sal, you go on in. And he's waiting around. Eventually, Sal comes out. He says, so, Sal, what is His Holiness like? Sal says, well, you know, he's a 44 regular, maybe more. Well, don't be like Sal, you know. Look for the unknown tools and the undiscovered tools. This is a very exciting time to be involved in brain issues. Not just because of the brain mapping that's going on, but in light of the Wounded Warriors and the NFL. There's all kinds of things that are going on. I want to say, in closing, first to the fellowship, you have every reason to continue your journey with optimism and hope and courage, because better days are coming, okay? And in terms of you professionals or soon-to-be professionals, I want to urge you to don't settle too easily. Be restless.